got really quiet. Yeah. All right. Well, for those that don't know, my name is Ty Sibley. I'm the president of Hood River Soaring. I have been for the last year. And welcome to our spring safety meeting. This meeting is very important for a lot of reasons that you'll see throughout the day here. But first and foremost, I wanted to make sure we all say a big thank you to the Hart family. This isn't abnormal. Like, they do this all the time. All of our Thursday night youth club meetings, there's always cookies and food, and they knock it out of the park every time. So we are very fortunate to have them in the club. Beyond the food, Brian and Jonathan, they do a ton of other stuff for the club. They were the Seattle Glider Council Unsung Heroes Awards for all the work that they've done to the club this year. So very fortunate to have them here. I also want to say thank you to Hood Tech for letting us use the yellow hangar here today. This is a great venue for something like this. And we don't have a ton of airplane noise today, so you guys shouldn't be too distracted. But we'll kind of get into the meeting here. And I wanted to start this out with, I want to ask everybody a question here that I'm not doing it for shock and awe value or to scare Fox's mom or anything like that. But just by a quick show of hands, in all of the pilots we have in here and everybody, who knows somebody that has lost their life in an aviation accident? Who knows more than one? Yet we're all still here, right? So that kind of speaks volumes of what this means to us. And as pilots, we have a duty to share our stories, and the only way that we get better is by learning from our mistakes, right? And fortunately, everybody here in this room has been able to live and learn from all of their mistakes, right? So a lot of the procedures and the rules that we have, they're written in blood, and they're there for a reason. Flying is fun. Like, that's why we're all here, right? But it's also very real. So please take away from today that we do take safety very serious, and we're here to get better, right? So that we're not that person that we all just thought about when you raised your hand, right? So I'm gonna hand it off here first to Jonathan. We have a few different sections that we're gonna cover today, starting with glider operations here in Hood River. And then Brian, I think, has a section, and then I'll wrap it up with the tow pilot side of the house. But Vice President Jonathan Hart.
All right, well, thank you everybody for coming. So yeah, this is general operations, going to talk about what it takes to be current this year, and then our general towing procedures, where we go up to the ridge and different stuff like that, landing procedure, all that stuff. So pilot currency and safety review certification. So this is our basically beginning of the year. You get back in, you go on the website, you sign up, you fill out this form that says, pretty much says you've attended the safety meeting, and this verifies your pilot currency details. You go out with the instructor, and you go do your 3 takeoffs, whatever, you get current, get proficient. And then this verifies you've read and understood the operations manual for HRS. So the safety process, Hood River Soaring seeks to provide safe and soaring opportunities for everybody. So all of our, of course, club members and everybody involved with the launch, whether it's a scenic passenger and everybody. So if you see something, say something. If you're a ground crew out there, you see something start to go south, and you just say something, even if it seems like it's not going to be a problem, but you think, oh, there's some concern there. Say something. And, if you're a ground crew, or even if you're a first-time student at at the glider, say something if you think it might be a problem. It's always okay. Somebody can say, no, it's not a problem, but thanks for bringing it up. Yeah, don't be afraid to ask questions. There's the tow pilot out there. There's the instructors. There's other ground crew. There's lots of people out there that are just out there to help everybody. You know, we all want to be safe out there together. So, and it's okay to call an operation timeout. So if you want to just bring everybody together, say tow pilot, come over here, glider pilots and instructor, get over here. We'll all talk about what we're going to do for the day. Or midday, you stop and say, here's what we could be doing better. We're lacking in this part of the operation today, so we can fix that. So here's our aerotow launching procedures. So runway 7, pretty much we only use 2.5, runway 7, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. Jeff Curtis will talk about that, but as of right now, we can only use 2.5 for launches of any rides, and then runway 7 we can only use for basically certificated glider rated pilots, and no scenic rides or instructional flights can go off runway 7. So PIC is ultimately responsible for the safety of the aircraft, but the field manager is going to be out there and say, okay, this dual glider is going to go before this single place glider because this is the scenic ride, and the single place glider is just going to go out and stay on the ridge for a while, so he's not quite as important to our paying customers. And then this is a non-towered airport here, so we're not required to use a radio, but if you are on a glider being towed behind a tow plane, you are required to use your radio, talk to the ground crew, the tow pilot as needed, and then of course talk to other gliders in the air once you're already up there. Before launch, glider and tow pilot need to brief what they're going to do for that specific launch, and this is an FAA required brief. So you tell them speed and altitude and where you want to go. So 65 knots to the dog bowl at 3,000 feet. And then special instructions, so if you're going to box the wake on this flight or anything like that, steering turns, so you brief that before launch. So rope break and or tow plane trouble on takeoff. So these should be briefed before every takeoff, you know. So it's in the before takeoff checklist in all the gliders. So what are you going to do below 200 feet? Anybody? So if the rope breaks below 200 feet, where are you going to go?
Oh, land straight ahead.
Yep, straight ahead or to the right of the tow plane. What about above 200 feet? Not quite.
No, just 180.
Yeah, into the wind. So you want to turn into the wind and land downwind.
Yeah.
What about above 400 feet?
Very good.
You want to either assess or you want to assess first. Am I high enough here? Are we way out there? There's no headwind, so we're way out here by the time we get to 400 feet. So maybe at this point it's time to just make a turn back. But you know, evaluate that and then either land downwind or make an abbreviated pattern. So routing and release. Upon release, the tow plane is going to turn left and the glider pilot is going to turn right. That's standard, almost any glider operation. So all routings for a tow plane and glider are going to be wind and traffic dependent. So you know, if there's other traffic that's using runway 7 on a specific day when it's calm wind and we can only use 2.5, we're going to have to fit in around other traffic. So that's a big part of it. So pattern tow, you're going to take off runway 25. It's going to be a right turnout overhead. You're going to do a 270 degree turn. Glider releases at 2,000 feet MSL over midfield southbound. Yeah.
Comment on that. We were talking about keeping that 270 degree turn coming so you don't end
Yeah.
up, if you go too far out, tow pilots, you'll be at 3,000 feet over the airport. If you just keep that, you can describe that, tow pilots can jump in. But you want to keep that turn coming instead of straightening.
Yeah,
out
so
the
just
legs
kind of
for
keep a
tow
270 degree
Otherwise,
turn.
you're wasting your altitude and you may be wasting the instructor's time to release them at 2,500 over the airport, which is where they want to be, except they'd rather be at 2,000. So if you make your pattern, if you come out and do long legs.
Yeah, so we're just trying to make
You won't
it
be
as
at 2,000
efficient as
over the
possible. So anyway, that's a pattern tow. 3,000 foot training tow is where you have an instructor and student. They're just going to go up and practice maneuvers. They're going to go just right turnout, and then they're going to keep climbing in a racetrack pattern over the field until glider release, which is usually going to be about 3,000 to 4,000 feet right over midfield, or maybe just a little bit south or north of the field. Ridge routing, so if you want to take a tow and you're going to go fly the ridge for a while, you're going to take off, same thing, right turnout from runway 25, but the tow plane is going to maintain pretty much a racetrack pattern, a north-south racetrack in front of the ridge on the west side of the ridge until the glider release at a predetermined altitude. Or if you want to stay on, you just stay on. The tow pilot's job is to keep climbing until the glider gets off. So our ridge soaring procedures. So the use of radios is recommended when flying on the ridge. It's not required to talk to, I mean, it is for launch, but it's not required that you talk to other gliders on the ridge. But it's definitely recommended, and we usually use 123.3 for all the air-to-air gliders. So 1228 anywhere within, let's say, 2 or 3 miles of the airport. But if you're getting out on the ridge and headed south, if you jump around the corner to Baldy down there, you're going to be on 123.3, especially if you have more than 2 or 3 gliders out there. So you make all turns away from the ridge. And don't fly above or below another glider. You don't want to squish them, and that's just not safe. If they had a big pocket of rising air and they could come up into you, or if they're other way around. And then when overtaking a glider traveling in the same direction but they're slower than you, you want to pass on the ridgeward side of them, because they're going to make their turn away, so you don't want to pass on the upwind side because they're going to turn into you if they make their turn away from the ridge. And again, if you have your radio, that's a good time to tell them, I'm coming up, 221 Juliet Hotel. I'm coming up on your right side, and I'm going to pass above and to the right of you. And then when 2 gliders approach head-on, the glider with its right wing on the ridge is going to have the right of way over the other glider. The landing and recovery. So the IP for runway 25. So I'm going to just go ahead here to the diagram. So traffic pattern for runway 25, start over the high school up there, and then their 45-degree entry, so that over the high school at about 16 to 1,800 feet MSL. So it's about 1,000 to 1,200 feet above the ground. You start your pattern. On the 45-degree entry, then there's that WAM biplane there, just kind of a good landmark there we use for our entry to the downwind. Then anyway, we'll use right traffic for runway 25, so 25 is here. So that's the pattern runway 25. Landing runway 7, your IP is going to be kind of that, and we've now started using, there's this, we call the hill house. It's pretty much just that. It's this house on top of a little knoll just out southeast of the airport. So we're going to use that, and that's just somewhere over here in the would be on this picture. Then we're going to use kind of this orchard road there as the place we come in and enter the downwind, and then we're going to land runway 25 or runway 7. And then if we land 7, we're going to most likely touch down somewhere in here, and we're going to go all the way down to 25 because you don't want to stop up here and then have the ground crew have to come and get you and pull you back. So, you land and you roll all the way down to the glide airport and they pull you off.
Jonathan,
Yeah.
can you back up the slide to the 2.5 approach?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one.
Back up one more. Oh no, that was it.
This. Okay.
Explain how things change when strong wind versus light wind.
Yeah. So.
The ground track your base like that.
Yeah. So I mean, you're gonna have to be sometimes crabbed a lot into the wind because the wind, in this picture, the wind is probably sometimes going to be like that compared to the runway. So you have to crab into the wind, and then this is going to be you're going to be heading like this, and then that's going to be a steep turn all the way around to your base. And on your base, you're going to even have to crab into the wind a little bit like that. So that's going to be a sharp turn all the way around there. And then, of course, you either do your crab or side slip on final. Is that kind of what you were getting at?
Well, yeah, that was half of the answer I was hoping for. The other half is how far to extend downwind.
Oh, yeah. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah. With strong winds, you definitely don't want to go to the river. Probably not even halfway there. So, on strong wind days, I'm going to be turning base somewhere in here, and that's not even a half mile past the end of the runway.
Wow.
And so, you make steep approaches into here, especially when there's a strong wind. And in no case ever, we never go to the river on downwind, just barely. So that kind of okay.
Perfect.
Cool.
Jonathan, I want to touch real quick on the runway 7
Yeah.
operation.
Yeah.
So in
I have
my
a better picture here too. There
Yep.
we go.
you go back one maybe.
Yeah.
So in the 4 years that I've been towing gliders and I've been flying in Hood River for about 10 years now, this I believe is the most dangerous thing that we do. We typically use runway 7 on a calm wind day, and if you look in the airport directory, it's a calm wind runway is runway 7, and they do that for noise abatement. However, as a powered pilot, it's a lot more convenient for me to land on runway 25 because everywhere I would want to go on the airport is on this end of the airport.
Huh.
As glider pilots, when the wind is calm, it's much more convenient to land on 7 and roll it out so we don't have to go get the golf cart and pull the glider all the way back, right? What happens is we are on a right downwind and all the power traffic is on a left downwind opposite direction, right? So we're going this way and they're going this way. So I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but communication is key here. Yeah.
I was actually almost in a collision with a long.
That's why I brought it up. That is the
Yeah, not everybody's going to be on the radio. We try to be as much as we can, and that's why we got some stuff fixed on the gliders, some other radios. But
I mean that's
we try to be on the radio,
this is
but
the
it
case
doesn't mean
study
other
of
people are
Yep.
going to be.
So make sure you have very good situational awareness before you land on runway 7 out of convenience, right? Obviously, if there's 10 knots of east wind, by all means, do it. But if you're just doing it for convenience,
especially when there's other airplanes that are using runway 25, if that's kind of where the flow of traffic is, just fit yourself in and go where it's going to be safe for all the traffic and not just yourself. So.
I
Yep.
land on that view on your downwind, make it probably no more than 800 feet AGL for the glider, and try to keep it fairly tight. And keep
Yep.
it simple.
Yeah.
so I didn't want to derail you. I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
that was brought up.
Got a question then.
Yeah.
At what point do you start monitoring the 122.8?
Yeah. So I don't think I
Start
have a-
listening for the inbound traffic.
Yeah, so if you're out on a ridge, I don't think I have a picture of the general area here. Not really.
It's not
No.
the 10 miles.
So yeah, no, it's not. It's usually going to be about 3 miles. So you get out 3 miles, you switch frequency to 1233. If you're coming back within 3 miles of the airport, you're going to go back to 22.8. That's usually about if you run the ridge down and run it back. It's usually going to be about what we call the notch up here. It's a big V in the ridge up there. So usually about there, we come there and then we head to the high school. So really anytime you're abandoning finding lift and coming back to the airport, coming back to the traffic pattern is a good time to start listening to traffic.
Done.
Yeah.
Is it standard practice for gliders to grab the AWAS? And if so, where would a good point for that be?
Yeah, so that it is. I don't know. We don't do it as much here as would maybe somewhere else because out in Afraida where we fly, you're going to be coming in from 10 miles out because you're doing real cross country. But here, probably right before you switch frequencies to 22.8, just switch over at the notch right before you start heading inbound, or start heading to the high school, and then listen to AWAS and then flip over to traffic. It only takes 30 seconds, 15 seconds to go to AWAS or whatever. So, yeah, good question. And then I already touched on this, but yeah, landing 2.5, you're gonna stop. You're gonna land and try to stop somewhere about here within this first 1,000-1,200 feet. That's kind of standard. And then when you land runway 7, you're gonna want to roll all the way down. If it does come to landing runway 7, you're gonna want to roll all the way down to about here, and then we just pull the glider straight off there. So end of your flight. It's the responsibility of the glider PIC to either transfer control of that glider to another PIC who's going to take it next and fly it, or securely tie it down on the flight line in its spot. Get the tie downs on it, and kind of secure it. Even if you're just going for lunch or whatever, secure it because we could have strong winds come up and blow stuff away. So tie it down or transfer it to either. You can also, if there's a field manager there who doesn't have anything else going on, they could watch it for a few minutes. That kind of.
But yes, but we'll tend to say, oh, you should take
They
care
can
of
say
it.
no. Yeah, they can say no.
But the point being, make sure, just like with transferring controls, if you're in a dual place airplane, make sure you have some kind of a positive transfer where you have agreed with the person that you're transferring responsibility for that glider to. It needs to be explicit and spoken and agreed upon.
Yeah, and that's usually best to another pilot who's going to fly it afterwards, or if it's if it's that glider's last flight of the day, of course, you're going to tie it back down on the line. So after you secure the glider, use the kind of end-of-flight checklist. Check everything. Make sure you have the radios off. Make sure you plug in. Make sure you plug in the solar panels to the batteries and everything, or if they need to be taken out and charged, do that. And then, yeah.
Can we add to that AWAS question again? Is there AWAS reliable with West Wind?
Not really. No. Kind of, it'll give you a general direction and idea, but it's usually not going to be super accurate. So you'll kind of know, okay, northwest wind, generally, but you don't know exactly where. And sometimes
the AWAS, the way that I usually use it is, before you take off, you turn your glider together, your horse around there, you listen to AWAS and it's saying 10 gusting to 18. Okay, 10 gusting to 18. Listen to it a few minutes right before you take off, listen to it. Oh, still gusting 10 to 18. It's not reliable because it's not, this wind sensor is not in a good spot, it's behind some trees. But when you're coming into land, listen to it, if you're thinking, I'm not ready to land, so you turn it on. Now it says it's gusting 18 to 25. Well, at least you don't really know what's going on, but you know that it's increased. So you're prepared to have to deal with that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you will tune in and they'll say it's gusting, it's 5 to 10. And you're like, oh, great, the wind's not blowing so hard. So really that's the only, you sort of have to take it all with a grain of salt, but you can get an idea if the conditions have changed.
Yeah, that's a good point, yeah.
But only if you listen to it before you take off.
Yeah.
Up, right?
Yeah.
So that's the way that I use it, and it seems like it's a pretty good. Sometimes I won't land because I'm like, oh my God, it's blowing so hard down there. Compared to when I took off, I don't think I'm ready yet.
Yeah.
So I had to with that just a little bit. What I've experienced quite a bit is you may take off and it's blowing 0 to 5, so no big deal. You want to come back and land on 7. You go up and fly from there.
Oh yeah.
You come back and even if you pick up the AWAS, it's still might say you land on 5. So okay, great, I'll land on 7. Well, look at your track over the ground. It may be blowing 20.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good point. Yeah.
When you're getting in the pattern, you can take a look at the flag at the museum.
Yeah.
The biggest wind socket in the
Yeah.
whole area.
Yeah, that's very good point. Because that's
older guys like me have a hard time discerning whether the wind socks at the
yeah.
airport was
That flag is going to be right about here. Maybe it's right about somewhere in there in the parking lot of Wham. That's a big flag, and that's probably, like you said, the best wind indicator around here.
There are actually even spots on the glider operations area where you can see that flag, and I'll look at that flag before I believe anything else.
Yeah. So then perform a final walk around of the glider, make sure everything's tied down, everything looks good, and then don't forget to log your flight at the end of, ideally before you leave, or just do it when you get home. Yeah.
What are the rules for landing on the grass?
Yeah, that's a good point. So grass landings are actually pretty common. We can do them. There's no problem. It's really nice grass. We'll do them a lot for training. Bronze badge training and stuff. Land on the grass here, and there's no problem with landing there if the runway is taken. If there's another glider on the runway staged and you need to come land right then, you can land on the grass there. And that's not a problem. It's really nice grass. It's no problem. The golf cart will just come and tow you back over.
Yeah, you're gonna expand on that. Okay.
Yeah. So if you are landing on the grass just for training, there is a sign here that powered aircraft pilots taxi by that says something to the effect of stop here if the grass runway is in use. So as a tow pilot, I'm always watching that taxiway because we're not supposed to land on the grass there if there's somebody taxiing on that north taxiway. And it happens all the time.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of go-arounds. If, I let people know when I'm in the pattern, tow 7, landing 2-5 grass, and I can see the person, pulling out to taxi here, and they go right by that sign, and I'm landing on the grass, and then about the time they get to here is when you do the go-around, and you get your point across. But same thing with the gliders. If there's somebody taxiing there, and you obviously you have no other option. If there's already a glider on 2-5 pavement, land on the grass. But if you have the choice, don't land there if somebody's taxiing.
Yeah.
And then also one thing to add on, don't be afraid to land on the grass too if the wind's pretty gusty.
Yeah.
No runway lights on that grass to worry about or anything like that. Just go ahead and see what it is. Questionable about this exhibition on sound.
So communication.
Yeah, good point.
Stan brought up a good point. We're not technically supposed to do simultaneous operations.
It's kind of considered one runway if you think of it.
Right.
That way.
According to the FAA, that's one runway, and half of it's pavement and half of it's grass. Pattern work, we do a lot of, the glider lands, the tow plane lands, and we hook up and do it again.
This is where a situationally aware field manager can really help the situation, which is where when you're field managing, you want to be really aware of what's going on and making sure that people are communicating. And so if we got a glider that's landed on the grass and we're retrieving them, we're on the grass, and there's a power pilot coming in, we will check with them over the radio and say, are you okay landing while we'll hold position, and we stop and we keep our eyes on them. We don't move around or anything like that. And so that's our way of thinking. We're not really operating. That's a little bit, what's the right word?
It's a gray area.
Yeah, it's a gray area. But we accommodate this by really careful communication, by not doing movements while another aircraft is using the other surface, and by just making sure that everybody is really situationally aware. Bottom line is, if you got a glider and you got to land and the pavement is taken, you got to go to the grass, right? So there's no question about that. Also, I believe in our training, there was a time when the instructors didn't land on the grass regularly with students. I think now, Jeff, if I'm correct, you tend to take your students on the grass once in a while so that it's in your mind and in your toolbox that this is a place I can hop over to and it's not a big deal. So that's a useful training exercise.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll say once again, just log your flights at the end of the day. That's an important thing, and that's all I have.
Did you want to say anything about logging?
Oh yeah, I'm happy to talk more about the flight logging. You guys want?
Yeah, I might as well hit on it real quick.
Mention the QR code.
The QR code. That's like our big accomplishment. I'll stand here for this.
This is Mark Johnson.
I'm Mark. I wasn't sure if I was going to talk, but the flight logging is one of those behind-the-scenes functions that's actually pretty critical, and we've tried to make it as easy as possible. The way we track our flights has changed over the years, but the way we do it now is either through a little shortcut that I highly recommend you keep on your phone, or a QR code that you can actually works now. I just tried it, and it's right by the parking area gate, or also on that that post that we had the whiteboard and the map, that little mini gazebo that Kelly built. It's there's a QR code, and you can scan that and just fill out. It should be pretty straightforward. And that includes solo flights, flight instruction, including the student and the instructor both. You both have that responsibility. Scenic flights, the commercial pilot's responsible for it. And private tows. If you're bringing, like Alex, if you're coming up, at least log the tow. So you can, all the other pages, like an adventure book, will take you to the right place depending on your initial responses of who you are and what you're doing. And then on the back end, the reason I say it's critical is your logbook for the whole fleet. So annuals, 100-hour inspections, Maintenance squawks all get tracked through there. So if you do a typo and say that you did 60 hours, then all of a sudden our 100-hour inspection gets flagged and we have to stop operations and figure out, okay, what happened here? Why, are we really at 99 hours? Jeff and I have been through this before. And we go through all the spreadsheets where this data goes and say, oh, so-and-so accidentally fat fingered it, and it was just 0.6 hours or whatever it was. So please take the flight logging seriously, and if you have any questions, I'm Mark at hoodriversoaring.org. Just flag me and I'll get right on it. That's pretty much it. So yeah, it tracks the glider logbooks, inspections. I don't know if you have any problems, but just please make a point every time, especially every day, just go online, either through your phone or on a computer where you just have time to just put that data in. The data really does matter for this because that's our only record. Does anybody have any questions or comments from your experience of using the flight logger? Have there been any issues that you've had? If there are, you know where to find me, but...
Do you have it at the website?
I believe it's on the website. You have to get to our member page, and then there's a whole bunch of links like weather related and our membership documents, and I believe the flight logging, it's a Google form, and so you should just be able to click into it from there.
Okay.
So, and on that note, the website is, it's really just a collection of shortcuts to our whole file structure. There's no like files or stuff that's actually on the website, but there's certain documents that are on there, but the flight logger is one of those, and the spreadsheet that we maintain is part of that Google Drive. So if you really want to dig into it, I can show you where to find all that information.
What happens if you forget to log your flights?
If you forget,
There will be a banging at your
And
door
you-
about
yeah.
10 p.m. that evening.
you can, Rachel will come after you. It's also how we calculate all the charges and the invoices. So, you guys are on the honor system here, and be honest about your tows and
Well, there's
your.
also going to be the log from the tow pilot, and if you're flying with an
Yeah.
instructor, they're going to send in their logs, and if they don't get one from you, then they're going to come.
If you're a student, you're going to have like 3 other checks and balances. So, if you do forget, you're eventually going to remember. It's okay to retroactively enter that. But if there's some deadline that you're up against, Rachel is our admin, and she's going to have a cutoff for certain things. So if you didn't have certain flights in by a certain time that you needed for other purposes in the youth program, that's going to be on you. But you can always go back and enter the date of your flight, back in the past if you need to. We just had to do that today for the scenic flights, so it's okay. You just put the right date in, and it should be fine. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And that's all I have, so I'm going to hand it over to my dad, and he's going to do safety and ground operations.
Alrighty, so why is my picture canted here? The others were straight across. Ori, as long as you didn't hear me say it Thursday night at our sim night. You don't remember. Why?
I think it's to show like angles.
Like? Use that word like. Don't ever use the word like around me. Give me a definite answer. Okay, Eli.
The angle.
What angle?
North, east, south.
Okay, it's just to point out that our runway is not orientated directly west. It's 25, not 27. Just so when you show people where north is, that's just everybody knows that anyway, but you start pointing. There's north. Well, actually, north is over there. Magnetic anyway. All right, so here we go. But first, we're gonna have a little bit of fun here. Who thinks they're fairly familiar with the Hood River area from the air? Put your hand up if you. Okay, you can recognize some places. We're gonna get to the places in a minute. Who's that? Oh, by the way, youth members that were there Thursday night, don't open your mouths. We went through all this. Yes.
Arnold Lilienthal.
And what did he do?
He made the first glider.
How did he die?
He died in a glider accident from a gusty wind.
There you go. Okay, well, okay. So that's what Ty was talking about. Here. Okay, who's that? His initials are on some of your gliders, Mike. Come on, who is it? Nobody knows? His initials are on a lot of gliders. No, not you youth guys. Come on, somebody know. Hey, Bamberg. Whose initials are on your glider?
I can't see that.
Whose initials are on your glider, even if you don't know?
Alexander Schleicher.
There you go. Okay, here's the easy one. Yes?
The Wright brothers.
Yeah.
Orville and William.
Okay, now here's a little local Northwest trivia. Youth members, keep your mouths shut. Who's that?
The wrong brothers.
Well, no. Wait, first of all, yeah, how do you like that launch setup? That's out of Oroville or somewhere up there. So the Seattle Glider Council has an award in this guy's name. Anybody know his name?
Isn't that Clyde? Somebody?
Very close.
Clyde.
Cloyd and Audrey Artman. He made that when he was 17 in high school. Long time ago. So. All right, so now we're going to have a quiz about recognizing some local places just for fun. Where's that? Anybody shout it out except for the youth members that were there and saw all this. Just shout it out. Where's that? No, don't even put up your hand. You already saw it. Yes, come on, shout it out.
Is that Neil Creek?
Nope.
Dog bowl.
Dog ball.
Come on, Corey.
Okay. Where's that? Louder.
Carlisle. Baldy.
Baldy. Where's that?
Panorama.
Oh yeah, okay. So, why do we call it the Hill House when it's so flat?
It's not.
It's not. It looks like that, especially on Google Earth, by the way. These are not my airborne pictures, but just so all you new pilots know, that's what it looks like when you look straight down on that hill house, but it's very obvious where that IP is. Where's that? Come on. Hey, youth members, I'm going to kick you out if you whisper that stuff. You all saw that? Next time I hear one of you guys whisper things, you're going to be standing outside. Somebody else answer.
Junkyard.
Junkyard. Where is the junkyard? Yeah, the east side of Underwood Mountain there. How about that? Lava flow. What? From what angle? Which side am I looking at this from?
From the north.
You're looking south.
Looking south. Yep. How about that?
High school.
High school or VIB for 2-5. How about that? Kind of a flat view of things.
Lava flow from the.
No?
Oh, it's
This is a tall mountain with a tower on it.
Oh, weird.
And it's west of here. The Defiance. Okay, where's the airport? Just for your sight picture. See where the airport is? I gotta look over here.
East.
It is. Where is it? I'm looking over here. We're down in. We're way over here. Okay. Yeah. Right. There's the Hood River. So let's see here. How about that?
Oh,
You know where that is? You
Horizon.
already answered twice. Yes.
Horizon.
Pawnee Landing Strip, circa 2011. I thought somebody would know where that was. That is the Horizon Christian School. Yes, and back before this club existed, they did landed a tow plane there one time and took a back out of there. Then the FAA showed up. But if you want to know, with the right skills, you can do that. You don't want to aim to do that. Okay. How about that one? What's that?
Road.
It's got a barn at the end of it now. Or a hangar. Say it. Hannah Mill. Is it a good land out spot?
Or short wingspan.
Pavement's 20 feet wide. And there are trees this big. Wait, this is one reason why it's important to go out. Part of our safety is driving out to these places and looking at them from the ground. And not just once, maybe every couple of years, find out if the strip's still open. We had Jonathan and I drove this area a couple of years ago and did a lot of this stuff. So we don't have a lot of land out options. Orchards are not good. Vineyards are worse. There's a few fields, yes.
An old pilot once told me that emergency landings, obviously there's a difference between land outs and emergency landings, right? Are to save yourself and not the airplane.
Yeah, you'd knock the wings off. You'd save yourself, but it's not as good as it looked from the air when we got down there. Let's put it that way. So yes. Where's that? I hope you never have this view of the world. Anybody know what that is? Steve Frisbee's view of the notch. He went up in the wave one day. His hole disappeared. And so he headed for the Dalles, and then he could see back into the airport. And he came back to the airport, but there was a big headwind, so it was something like this. No, he made it through just fine, but he said he wouldn't do it again. So hopefully you never have this view. Hopefully you never have this view of the airport. Oh, by the way, the airport is right there. If you're looking at it like this, you made a mistake. What's that?
More than a mistake.
Columbia?
No. Kelly should know. He flew over there in his glider last summer.
Oh, that's Alonzo?
Nope.
Where is it?
Southeast.
Lakeside?
Nope. About 30 miles out of here, southeast, Mount Hood.
Oh, that's,
Pine Hollow.
Pine Hollow, yep. That's good land out place. Start doing some cross country. Okay. How about that one? I know somebody in here who knows where that is. Jeff, you know where that is? Yeah. We flew over there last year when we took the K-21 out and flew over Jeff's house out there. So there's RA Ranch. All right. Yeah, no, well, there was a little airport next to you, but there's a fence across it now, not a good split. Good place. But you'll see that if you're on your way to Goldendale. Might fly over there. How about this one?
Spring Creek.
Very good, very good. And would you say that's landable?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
we've driven over there, talked to Lane. He was pretty inviting of pilots, so that's another good land out place just across the river.
Wow.
How about that one? It's out by Centerville.
Wildhead.
How did you know that? Have you landed there?
Almost.
Was there a mistake involved with that almost? Yeah, there are some little airports. This is out on the between Klickitat and Goldendale there. So get to know these things. I'm really here to talk about ground ops, but I kind of want to have a little fun and inspire you to get out. There are places we can go. Well, here. Okay, where's that? Green Acres. Where's the approach into that? What's your approach into Green Acres?
Oh, the river.
Yeah, you're going to be on base. You're going to be on base. You're not. This hill comes up like this, so you're committed. You come down the river, but it's very. You'd say it's landable, Corey?
Oh yeah, it's landable.
Yeah, I mean you don't want to be down in D Valley that low, but if there's a land out place, that's a really legitimate land out place. Easy to get to the road right down there too. What's all that? Nope. Kylan nailed this one for me. He used 2 words. He said decision points. Okay, there's a lot more to it. I just went through. This is what I've been doing with the kids. We've been going through and planning all the decision points for how you got to be at 5,000 feet. I did this on Google Earth, and then I can turn off different layers. These are just all the circles that are 5,000 feet above each airport, at 200 feet per mile. Glide slope. So this is part of our planning. You can go all the way to Walla Walla, and if you have if you can lose less than 200 feet per mile, you can stay at 5,000 feet or below all the way to Walla Walla. There's that many airports out there that are landable. So do your homework. That's the only reason I bring all that stuff up. All right, ground ops. So first of all, I'll let you shout out some of these. Who's affected by safety and quality of ground ops? Everyone. That's a good answer too. How about glider pilots? Yes, the glider pilot that you're launching. Students and instructors. Co-pilot, of course, benefits from that. And if you do your job, these people are going to be safer. Passengers. How about visitors?
Yeah,
They're not going to get run over by the tow plane if you're doing your job as on the ground crew. And not only that, you're going to educate them along the way. Other glider pilots that are out there, we talked about a little bit about deconfliction using the grass when necessary. Field manager and ground crew, keep your eyes open for this stuff. You're the extra set of eyes, and especially with the radio, eyes and ears down there. Power pilots. There's a lot we can do to deconflict, right, Ty? We don't have, by not sitting on the runway for 5 minutes, I'll get into that later, but by not sitting on the runway for 5 minutes at the beginning of every launch, we defrustrate the situations, we deconflict, and we're on better terms with the neighbors, and it's safer. The neighbors. How about the neighbors? They come over and they're walking their dog. You're the ground crew. You know, sometimes they don't like the noise, but there's ways to talk to them that just might not that might give them an idea. We got some kids learning to fly out here, and there's people that are using this, and then you're going to be, hopefully you're mostly glider pilots. The ground crew is serving you someday. Serve Served back by coming out, being on the ground crew, and that's what this is about. What am I doing out here when I could be flying? Okay. The first thing is safety. What's the second thing going to be? What's the third thing going to be? Sorry, fooled you. We want to be efficient out there because efficiency equals safety. If we're sitting on the runway, the field manager and the ground crew, the longer that pilot sits on the runway, the less our eyes are able to keep track of the skies and things. We're getting distracted. We're not situationally aware. So efficiency is important. Service to your fellow pilots. You're going to be a pilot. Think about coming out, being on the ground crew, serving some of your fellow pilots because they're doing that for you, especially these youth members. Passengers and visitors experience. So you got passengers. Give them a good brief. While they're waiting for their ride, talk to them. They're going to get a lot better experience if you as the ground crew, field manager or ground crew, if you're talking to these people, they're going to have a lot better experience there. They're going to remember things. They might even come back someday after they got their little ride in the glider, right, Sophia? Came out and got right with Jonathan. I thought we were never going to see her again. Then like 2 weeks ago, she showed up, want to fly. So things do well when you represent the soaring community and aviation in general to the community around you. You're the eye, you're the face of this to the people that come in. Okay, training. So, especially if you're an adult that's fully trained, it's fully trained, you should be taking on the training of the young people that are there, or maybe they'll train you. Depends on who's more fully trained, right? Other duties as assigned. By that, so is that our new field manager? Anybody know who that is?
Steve.
Yeah, it's right out of what movie?
It's like the Windles of Your Mind.
That's the song, Windles of Your Mind. The original Thomas Crown Affair. Yeah. Anyway, so other duties as field manager. You're not just there for safety. You are. We talked about this before. Sequencing gliders in and out. Your job as the field manager is to manage all those kids running around, keep things safe. But it's your job to make sure that the scenics aren't just stacking up there, right? The scenics can really get behind because you get out of order, and now your scenics are going to be way at the end of the day, get them pushed back. Now you need to make sure you keep track of the schedule. Have it on your phone, or I try to print it, tape it up to the board. It's your job is to keep those things running smoothly. That was. Here we go. Talk to the scenic passengers as they arrive. Keep the visitors and family members engaged. Okay, how many times is a scenic there and they're the only person that's there? How many times do they come with somebody else? Almost all the time. Birthday presents and stuff. So there's almost always somebody sitting on the ground. Okay? Keep them behind the 50-foot line. If you're very careful, you can walk them out there to take a picture, beforehand, but you make sure they're back when it's time for the launch. Instruct them, train them. Sell scenic rides to others. Sell lessons, sell membership while you're there. Not about safety, but it certainly is about the sustainability of the organization. Remind instruct, this is a particular peeve of mine, not peeve, but important to me. Remind instructors and pilots to get things done before they pull out on the runway. All right, so that they've just done a pattern tow and they're halfway down and you're pushing them back, and they're talking about what they're having for dinner tonight. What should the instructor and student be talking about while you're pushing them back? The next launch, what they need to do, right? Again, if that discussion starts when we get you pushed back all the way, then we're there for 5 minutes waiting for that. We see this going on in the glider cockpit, and then we're frustrating the guy who's running up over there. So, if ground crew, be nice to them, but talk to the instructors, kind of remind them. And I'll go a little bit over this later too, but teach everyone about soaring while you're there. Show them the map. People that come on board, the students, go over, draw thermal on the map, right? And just don't forget to do your job while you're doing that. I get so busy talking to people and drawing pictures of thermals and ridge lift and stuff, and it's like, somebody's landing. For the youth members, by the way, here's my standard for the youth members. If they do not know the glider's coming down to land, they don't get to use the cart to go retrieve them. So they have to run down, 800 feet down the runway. If that glider touches down before they're rolling in the cart, they have to run. So I won't do it to you, John. Okay, and then another big one here. We don't want our gliders blowing away in the wind. So make sure somebody's attending the glider, or you've got to wait on the wing, make sure they're orientated the correct way. How many times has the glider been sitting out there, nobody's there, and it will get blown into the tow plane? So you're on the ground crew, part of the safety of our gliders. Basic ground crew safety. Okay, my kids get, if you ever hear me say this is my new acronym, pat wig away, pay attention to what is going on around you. My kids used to hate it when I said pat wig away because they weren't paying attention to something and something drastic was happening and they didn't know what was around. All you have to do is watch and listen. Make sure. So paying attention is the biggest thing here. Safety vests are required for the ground crew. I know that we don't always do that. We've got a bunch of them in the trailer. Wear them. So 2 reasons. One, safety so you can be seen. Also so that people know who's the ground crew. You're not just mom or dad standing out there on the ground crew. Gloves are recommended. You can get some pretty nasty burns from that rope. So I made all the youth members get a pair of cheap, Home Depot gloves. Have a flight bag with them in there. We use them if you can. What that was. Okay, we need to have at least one ground crew member monitoring the radio, the field manager. I really prefer if the wing runner has one because you might be the first person that notices that some major thing needs to be deconflicted. So it's a good idea to have radios. And I think, Ty, do we have a loaner that we keep charged out there that the ground crew can use? So. Well, we need to maybe formalize that and make sure that we keep something out there. I really like the ring runner to have a radio as well, but the field manager for sure, wing runner possibly. Here's 3 things never to do with the tow line. Hey, youth members, can some youth member tell me one thing you're never supposed to do with the tow line, Ori?
I did not.
Well, okay, yeah, you probably shouldn't cut it either, but I'm talking about stuff you might do accidentally while you're working. Go ahead, what's that?
Driving over with
driving it over with the cart. Yeah, we don't want to mess up our tow lines. That's a safety thing because they get worn out. Okay, what else? Anything else you don't do with tow line? I'll give you 3 I came up with. Don't step on it. You're going to grind dirt into it. It's unnecessary. Step over it. But don't straddle it when it's hooked up to anything. And the other thing is don't get between it and the tow plane once it's hooked up. You don't want that rope coming around you and the tow plane moves and pulls. You just when you're hooking up the glider, make sure that rope's on the other side of you. It's easy peasy to do. Just pay attention to the little stuff because it might not be little someday. Never stand in front of the wing when you're the wing runner. Go out there. Don't stand in front of it. If they start moving, I've seen it happen. Get bashed in the ankle when the tow plane pulls a little too far forward. Happens occasionally, right? I've seen people get bashed in the ankle. So you stand at the end of the wing. We want two trained ground crew members out there. We don't want 4 people standing around by the end of the wing. Nobody knows who's in charge. So 2 people if we need to. Maybe one hooking up, the other wing runner. Everybody else back away from there. We sometimes have 3 because we'll have a training as well. But just don't stand out there and gawk. You need to be back off the runway and preferably back behind 50 feet mark if you're not actively participating. When you're walking the wing, which wing do you walk, Henry?
You walk the wing that's toward the obstacle.
Yeah. You can't tell what's happening at the other end of 57 feet. It's right there. Always walk the wing that's toward the obstacle. When we're walking the glider back, you can't tell how far it is to the other end of the glider to that picnic table over there. Go over to the tree side and walk that wing while you're walking back. And that way, and getting around the tow plane, how often do we just fumble around? Am I close? Am I close? Am I close? Am I close? Think about the little stuff. It's not little. Good. Get on the other. Oops. Go ahead and ahead of myself here. There we go. All right. Anyway, that's going to take care of our gliders sometime. If you're walking the other wing, you could bash it into a tree. The other wing into a tree. If you're walking the side towards the tow plane or towards the trees, you can guide it around. You're very clear that you're 6 feet away. Does it look like 6 feet when you're on the other end of the glider? The other end of the wing? No, it looks like you're going to hit the tow plane. You don't know. So always walk the wing that's towards the obstacle. Youth members, no horsing around, or it might be a long time until you solo. All right, pre-launch hand signals. This is the official SSA stuff, SSA, SSF stuff, and I don't really need to go through a lot of this in detail, other than things like this. Is this any kind of signal? That's what you do at a rodeo, right?
Rodeo, yeah.
Okay. This is a signal. What signal is this?
Go.
Go.
What signal is this? How do I tell when the slack is up? Okay, there is no signal official for that, but slow down. Don't just do this and then suddenly the toe pilot, so you just go like that and he's got to stomp on the brake. Slow down. It's really easy. Just think ahead. Okay, this is going to be your. By the way, who here has had any official formal ground training in the last 2 years? I see a bunch of youth members. How many adults? Any adults had any official ground training, operations training? Probably not. So this is your reminder of all the little things that all these youth members are really good at. Sometimes the adults aren't. We're going to start with staging. So busy work is safety too. Going back to instructors talking about things, programming flight computers and so forth. Busy work, it's important, but it does not belong on the runway. Ground crew try to help the instructors, remind them. I'm going to bring up my prime example of who does it right. Tim, do it like Tim. Your efficiency, Tim. No, I hear your briefs with your passengers, and then when you go out to the runway, if you blink, you're going to miss the fact that he's got his thumb up and he's ready to go. You got to be really attentive because you're not wasting time on the runway. And as the ground crew, we really appreciate that. So use Tim as your best example there. Okay, so help the pilots think ahead if they're not Tim. Okay, just talk to them, remind them. Hey, let's get this release done. Release test. Don't do it on the runway. Do it while we're out here, while we're hooked up to the cart. Every bit of time you spend on the runway is what? It increases. What increases as you sit on the runway? Risk. Yeah, and it reduces safety. So there's so much we can do that we'll just hedge our bets against conflicts and against any bad things happening. So here's the process. Look and listen for traffic before you make the call. We're going to go out on the runway. Here's a good call. Hood River, really simple, minimalistic. Hood River traffic, tow plane and glider staging 2-5 for launch. Something like that. Keep it minimal. You don't need to say we're going to do this and that and the other thing. And then they'll also have the tow pilot and mechanically closed and locked and stuff. But as far as the ground crew, keep it minimal. It may be you as the ground crew member, the field manager, the tow pilot, or the glider pilot may make that call. You can kind of work that out as you go. It's good for the ground crew to do it. Sometimes get used to it. When you pull the glider out, you're behind the cart. First thing you do is get that cart back off the runway. Don't park it and then go turn the glider around while this cart's sitting there in the grass in the middle. Get that cart. Takes a minute extra. Once it's unhooked from the cart, run that cart back over to the 50-foot line. Don't leave it sitting right next to the runway. It's going to get left there, and it's going to look not very good to people that are landing and see that cart sitting right by a light there. Right? Align the glider with the center line. Okay, this is being really arcane about this, but really detailed about this. Get the glider lined up with the center line, except, and by the way, with the K-21 especially, you're going to have to either push down on the nose, push down on the back. Don't turn it. You all know this, right? Don't turn it while there's two wheels on the ground, because one of them's going to be skidding sideways. Might go without saying, but all the kids are trained. I'm not sure how long it's been since some of the adults have thought about this. Don't turn it while two wheels are on the ground, because you're going to be leaving the rubber there and wearing out your tires. All right. Now, left wing is down because we operate from if we're on 2-5, we're going to be operating this time. When would a glider pilot request that you put the right wing down? Possibly.
The wind.
In the wind. And if he's going to do an unassisted takeoff. If you're going to be a wing runner, it's always going to be left wing down because you're holding it. You can hold it however it needs to be held. But if he's going to do an unassisted takeoff, he may want the right wing down. Just glider pilot will tell you. If you're there, he's probably not going to do an unassisted takeoff. But occasionally he might need to. So just remember, he could tell you something different if it's important. Okay, if the glider has a tow dolly, my LaBelle has one. Go take, as soon as you get it aligned, take that tow dolly off, walk up to the canopy, seat the glider pilot, show the glider pilot that you have his dolly in your hand, and then you put it on the cart or by a runway light so nobody can hit it.
Can I ask a question on that one?
Yes.
Glider pilots, do you usually take responsibility for your own tail dollies? So if the ground crew is pulling a tail dolly off, then something got missed.
Oh, yes, yeah, absolutely. Okay. There should be a brief that the glider pilot should be telling you. Keep in mind that we're trying to get. I'm going to back up a little bit. We really, really, really want the glider pilot to be in the glider when he's out on the grass, and we're pulling him out if we can, as often as possible, because it's less time out there fiddling with belts. But the glider pilot should say, when I'm around, you take the tail dolly. Very runway lights are a good place to put it on a little cement pad because you know you can't run it over it there, and then he'll know where it is. Or put it in the cart where it can't fall out. That's really critical. We don't have so much of that here, but a few of the private gliders do have those tow dollies. And
Brian, I'm going to jump
yeah,
in here again.
absolutely.
I want to make it real clear
Yes.
that there are certain things for certain gliders that are part of the pilot's checklist. And if the tail dolly is one of those that you as a pilot do, then our hope to have you in the glider when we tow does not override your privilege and your responsibility to carry out your checklist, for example, taking care of your own tail dolly. So none of this overrides the PIC's prerogative to say, I'm going to do it this way. Okay, these are preferences.
Well, they are. I would never get. You would absolutely respect and support the the pilot's checklist that he's using. In general, I'll back off a little bit. In general, we want to encourage people to spend as little time out there on the runway because of the shared use. That's the point there. And if he doesn't say anything about his tail dolly, it's kind of like right-of-ways. You're just as dead if you weren't at fault in a right-of-way situation. So if you see that in the ground crew, you're going to take it off. And again, the key thing is he needs to see where that is before he takes off.
Agreed.
I
fully agree.
You have a very good point.
I'm speaking from the perspective of an often field manager here.
Yeah, very good. Very
and
good
I'll say
point.
my tendency is I will push you along before we get to the runway. Once we're on the runway, it's your show, and I'm not going to rush you at that point, once you're on the runway.
Yes.
You run the show, and it's very important for our field managers not to be poking at a pilot while they are engaged in their runway techniques. However, the training to get stuff done beforehand is important, and hopefully that all happens before then.
That whole discussion should be happening over in the grass. That's a good one. If you have a glider that has some appurtenances you're not used to, ask the glider pilot about it. What's your protocol? Yes?
I just kind of adding to this discussion. I can't think of a situation where you would be not going in a straight line from the time you get in the glider to where you're getting on the runway. So you can take the tail dolly off, and you're just going to go in a straight line to get on the runway, and then you can twist the glider without the tail dolly.
Yeah. In general, this is going to happen on a day when you don't have enough ground crew, and we're like our LaBelle, where you might have two people out there or just one person besides the pilot, and so you're kind of running ground with one person. There might be an advantage to pulling it out there and swiveling around. Jonathan might be pulling it out on his own, and you're making sure to look for that. Anything that you know that's going to be unsafe. But that's a good point. Most of our stuff, if we can load them ahead of time, you won't need that. You'll just push down on the nose and swing them anyway, most of the time. So this can happen a lot out at a freighter. Everybody's got tail dollies. They're pulling them around with cars, and they're pulling around with golf carts, and they're pushing around. And we're collecting 25 or 30 tail dollies in a pile. It's a circus. So you got to come up there and see this. So after you've got the glider lined up, go get the tow ring and the line. And I tell these youth members especially, you can run over there to get it. On the way back, though, be looking at the condition. One of the youth members here saw that there was a knot in the rope one time, and we had to stop. Your eyes on the ground crew are critical here. We found badly frayed ropes. Take a look at that. Don't just go mindlessly show it to the tow pilot or the glider pilot. You should assess that while you're bringing the line back to the glider. Okay. Oh God. Here's exactly what Stan was saying. This is a pet peeve of mine. Wait for the glider pilot to ask to look at the knot and tow ring. Don't walk over while they're doing their checklist and be doing this. You just stand back here like this. It's really simple. Just think about what you're doing. And when it's time to show it to them, see that? Okay. Wait till they'll give you eye contact if they ask for it. Okay, this doesn't do any good at all. I've seen this kind of stuff. Okay, I'm going to be really picky. The devil's in the details, folks, with this stuff. It's just like that. They need to see everything that's there. Pull the tennis ball back off the edge. Show them what you're not just performing a procedure. They need to look. Yes, Mike.
So I was running rope at the Willamette, not only showing the rope, but we found a tow string that was cracked. You could barely tell, but it was cracked completely around the fluid. And so don't just pick it up, glance at it, rotate it around, inspect it. When you hold it up for the pilot, they can't see that.
Good point. And another reason you should be inspecting this every time. And by the way, ground crew, you may very well be called upon to walk the entire rope at the beginning of the day. Tow pilot or a ground crew member should do it at the beginning of the day anyway. Walk the entire line as you unroll the rope first time. But you get out there, make sure you show them the things they need. Think about if you were sitting put yourself in the glider seat. If you're sitting in there, it doesn't do any good to see the tennis ball over top of this stuff. They want to see that there's no fray. They want to see the condition of the rings. And
if you want like a next level ground crew skills, while you're showing the pilot the tow ring, if the sun is bright and behind you, put your shadow over the shadow of your body over the pilot's head, so that the sun's not in their eyes as they look at the tow ring. That's sort of next level skill, but if you can do that, you're doing all right.
Yeah, and be aware of who's on that glider. If it's an instructor and a student, so who's officially the pick when there's an instructor and a student on board? Who's logging that as the pilot in command?
The instructor. If it's
okay. Who's learning to fly a glider and needs to see the ring as well? Show it to both of them separately when each one of them's ready. Our checklist. This hookup thing comes in the middle of it. They'll divert from that if they want you to do it sooner, later. Okay. Instructor, you don't need to do it to your scenic passengers. They don't know what they're looking at. Know who's in your glider. Know what the role is. Okay. Show it to each of them. And the instructor should be asking you to do that anyway, but just as a matter of habit. If you know it's an instructor and a student, and I don't care which one you do first, they might. Okay, you get down. Don't do this when you get down. You get down underneath and you do this. What are you telling them?
Open it.
Well, you didn't say to open anything. They can't tell that. Again, devil's in the details. Raise your fist and open it so they see you do something. Otherwise, they think you're waving at them. I have that happen multiple times. They don't know what you're doing. Your hand is there. Get up there, make a really positive motion, then they open it, get the ring in, close it. Oh, I really got, where did, oh.
You went several slides.
How did that happen? Oh, it looks to me like it went out of its, you have to do you have to do all of F5, so it's shift F5, so shift F5, or it starts at the beginning. There you go. Okay, sorry about that. Pressing too many buttons, talking with my hands up here. Okay, back over here. Here we go. Okay, 1, 2. Okay, got that? Yes?
Can I jump in with a question? I see you got a weak link.
Yes.
The standard line that we use, can you talk about the big ring, small ring? Do you want to hear the request to big ring, small ring every time?
Yes. Yeah, good point there. So this doesn't have both rings on it. It's just a weak link. It's only got the toast ring on it. You all know what the difference is between toast. How's a Schweitzer ring different from this? Bigger. Okay, different kind of hook. Don't get them mixed up. You won't be able to get the Schweitzer in a toast, but you could get the toast on a Schweitzer, and it can jam because the hook itself is flared, and it could get caught, and then they're stuck. Then they're stuck with a can't release situation. So, and I'm actually going to go into that Schweitzer. When you get down there, ideally, I will tie on what Corey's saying here. Ideally, you should say big ring or small ring or toast ring or Schweitzer ring, both ways between you and the pilot. When they say what they want you to hook up and you confirm that, I don't know that always happens. That's ideal. It would be best if the glider pilot says big ring, please. Schweitzer hooks, depending on the on the glider pilot, he may hold it open or not. Doesn't really matter. If he doesn't open it for you, you can pull it back. We have to show you at the glider. If you haven't done that recently, get down there. Even if you're a glider pilot, get down there and with the ground crew sometime and see it. You can unhook hook it yourself. You can't do that with toast for sure. So you have to use this. Schweitzer, find out what the pilot prefers. He might just want you to do it on your own, or you can do this either way, right? And keep jumping in here.
A few years ago, we adopted the Hoover Soaring standard that at the end of the main line is part of the tow plane and operation. So not the weak link, but the main line is going to have both options. So we don't want to get that wrong.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. That was good point. Again, this is a weak link. It's toast only. The other one will have toast, and it will have Schweitzer. And you make sure, and communicating that verbally is a very good way to make sure that you've heard it twice from the glider pilot and from the wing runner. Also, I've seen people do this multiple times. They hook it up and then they do this. You think that tells you anything? You shake it. You hear some rattling.
Make sure it's not
The
stuck.
toast ring. These can get jammed in the jaws. The toast jaws, you push this all the way, and if you get it a little bit canted, the toast jaws are right here. You rattle it, it sounds good. What happens as soon as the toe plane starts moving, Corey? It's a big waste of time, because usually if they're far enough down, the toe blade is going to take off. He may just take off. Put it in there. The devil's in the details, like I said, and rotate this ring in there. You know it's free inside the. Don't rattle it. You stand up and do this rattle thing. It doesn't tell you anything. It tells you there's noise down there. That's all. Especially with our Schweitzer and toast rings. Yes.
That detail I had happened one time with a friend. Somebody hooked me up with the toast, and he said it was good, but the cable, it just didn't feel right. And I asked him to lunge on it and I'll try it out.
Yeah, and that's the next step is the pulling part. I see this like I said, I see this all the time. Shaking it doesn't tell you. It makes some noise. It doesn't tell you whether it's jammed in there. So please, on the ground crew, and all these youth members, they know because I harp on this stuff. Once you put it in there, you can rotate this. You won't be able to do that, this ring. You won't be able to rotate it freely in there. So that's I've seen it happen and it's afraid to pop out multiple times. Yeah. And it's a waste, and it ends up with y'all spending more time on the runway than you need to. All right, so get up, tighten the line. Don't jerk on it. That also really doesn't tell you anything. Pull it tense, and then enough tension after that, once you pulled it tight, to move the glider a little bit. Don't have to move very far. You can make sure it's not going to pull out. Go to the left wingtip here. Other places are different. Afraid we do both sides, right? Because afraid sometimes they're launching off both sides of the runway on contest days. All right, stand outbound of the wingtip. I already said that. Don't get in front of it, or your ankle could get bashed. All right, signal the tow pilot to take up slack. Now, do you think it does any good to be doing this when tow lima is in front of you and it has a reel? Can you tell when the slack is out? Can you tell when all the lines off is reel? Okay? No. Pay attention to which glider, which tow pilot is out there, which tow plane is out there. If it's tow lima, if he's got a reel, just give him a signal to start moving. You can't tell when the slack out is when it's off the reel anyway, because it's inside the cockpit. But if they don't have a reel, you're going to do the standard signal here. Just a little common sense, but we've just said, give him a signal to go. He's watching the reel by his feet. He's not looking at you anyway. Yes?
What should that signal be to tell them that they're ready to go?
Well, you could start doing this, but if you keep doing this, it's more confusing, because why are you doing this? He doesn't know when you're done, you're not done. So I usually just, when Jonathan's towing, I just kind of give him a go-ahead signal.
This is on the assumption that you're unwinding the rope by having the tow pilot.
Yeah. If he's got assuming he's got the reel and it's all reeled in, you've just brought it back far enough. You've hooked it up. It doesn't do any good. If you know it's already out, you're going to do the slack take up, but it's a waste of effort and it confuses everybody if you're doing this when you don't know when you're supposed to stop either, right? So, good point.
Yeah, Bill, that's a good question. So years ago, we used to brief this as when it's tow lima with a reel, we're going to unload the reel with the wing runner's going to unload the reel. We stopped doing that last year, right? Instead, we just pull off enough to hook up the glider, and then taking the slack out is really the tow pilot watching the drum empty in front of his feet, right?
And this is a great example of why a tow pilot and a field manager should have a face-to-face engines off briefing at the beginning of a shift, so that you can talk through how you like to operate and what you like to see and any special notes like that. Good to go over this kind of thing between a tow pilot and
yes, and also as far as who's going to drop the rope and who's going to bring it in, because that's a very good point. Beginning of the day or a change of pilots. Right. Whether it's a commercial pilot, a change of pilots, there always needs to be a brief. So yes, Ori.
On tow lima, when you're pulling it back to the glider, you don't want to yank it too hard, otherwise it'll wrap around the rope.
We've had that happen before. If you give it a big pull, the spool starts spinning like this and it rolls around and the line gets all snarled. We've had to untangle some of that stuff, right? Haven't we, Joe? I mean, you were there the one day somebody got a really good knot in there, and we had
same with for the tow pilots. I had this happen one day last year. I wasn't taxiing particularly fast, taking out slack, but just a little bit of the wrong momentum gets up, and that rope just turned into a rat's nest.
And then it pulls down inside the tube, and now you've got the rope doubled back a couple times on itself, jammed in the tube, and that's when it's like, Jeff, come over here and figure out what we're supposed to do with this line. But yeah, so just be aware of which tow plane it is, and that brief with the tow pilot. And then this is just the straight up when slack is out. By the way, At Afraid, I had a guy who insisted on thinking of slack out as the same thing as hold operations. That's not, this just says the slack is out. There's no signal for it officially in the books, but we aren't holding operations. We haven't said anything stopped here. We just said the slack is out. So don't make up signals to do other things. That's the one that is not in the book, is that hand up. All right, launch sequence. Check the pattern. Watch the glider pilot. Okay, what good does it do you to watch the tow pilot when it's the glider pilot that's going to put his thumb up? So you kind of, once you've checked that pattern, you kind of have to have your eyes glued on that tow pilot, and the glider pilot, especially if he's very efficient, because he might have that thumb up. He might get his belt done up really fast and go through his checklist and maybe ready to go 3 seconds. So you're going to have to have the guy's eyes glued to him. Okay, he's going to give you his thumbs up. Around here, and we can certainly debate it, we don't lift the wing until we see the thumbs up. Okay? And remember, here we've already taken up slack. We don't lift the wing up here. There are other places where they do it the other way around. At Willamette, do you lift the wing and then pull out slack? Yeah. Do you lift the wing before you pull out slack or after the slack?
The wing has to be lifted before the slack.
Yeah, we do. We leave the wing down and pull the slack out, and after it's the last thing we do that signals that it's actually okay to take off. We lift the wing. Have we had any past operational discussions about? Has there been any debate on that front?
We've done it both ways in the past, but I think most recently we have allowed, for efficiency, we've allowed slack takeout with the wing down, because that's a clear signal to the tow pilot that the glider is not ready to take off. And we've decided that taking up slack in that condition is okay, because the tow pilot can see a clear signal that the glider is not ready to take off.
Yes, wing down is one of the, and unless it's officially an unassisted takeoff, is one of the signals. So that's kind of how I see it, and if there's no objection, I don't think we've had any formal. Mark, yes?
This wouldn't be an objection, but just to counter it a little bit, when I was doing it with the Scenics, I intuitively lifted the wing level prior to slack, just because I was thinking if there is a little jerk, due to my inexperience in timing or whatever, that it could drag, and I just wanted to avoid that. So that was one reason why I lifted the wing first. With the understanding that I wasn't launching.
I would suggest we don't debate the actual operational aspect of it right now.
It's fine. I just wanted to. The main thing is we need to be consistent, and as of right now, the wing stays down until the slack is out. And there's another reason for that. If the wing runner sees something, the wing should be going down anyway. If it's already down, that's one less thing to do if they see a situation. So I didn't want to make a unilateral decision about it, but that's what I've taught all the youth members, is the wing stays down until the slack is out. So that we could have a discussion about it later though. Wings level except to adjust for the wind. The glider pilot may say more or less. If you've got a strong wind, which we do often, coming from what, 3029, you may need to lift your wing a little higher than the other side. Short people, some of our youth members, when you're launching the 233, you're going to have somebody taller hold that wing for you because it's high wing. You need to get it at least level. Almost never going to have wind. Yes, Henry.
Yeah, it's a lot higher than you think it's going to be.
Yeah, well, yeah. So judge whether the other wing is level, and then if there's a strong wind, give him a little bit of extra so that as he starts his takeoff roll, the wind can come up a little bit. He should be able to tell you if it's too much or not enough, but don't overthink it. But it's okay to give him a little bit of extra high on your side when there's a wind from the north. So he's giving you the thumbs up. He's lifted the wing. Where are you looking now? Look at his rudder. Okay, that's the only thing you need to know right there. You can check the pattern again, but you need to be looking at the rudder. He'll waggle it once or twice. By the way, glider pilots, it's not a good time to check your controls after the slack is out and you're waggling the rudder and now you're signaled to take off and you're in the middle of your checklist. Don't waggle that rudder unless it's time to take off. You do that back when you're checking your controls before we hook up and all that stuff. Okay, so all you're going to do is watch the rudder. Just stare at the rudder. When he starts waggling the wing, give your signal. You don't need to look at the tow plane. It's a good reason to have a radio so you can hear if they're talking. Give them the signal to take off. I've had it happen multiple times. They just start taking off without waiting for me. You got to run if they go, but I don't want anybody on my ground crew giving that signal just because they thought somebody wanted it. You look at the rudder. If you don't see that rudder waggle, do not give the signal to take off.
And can I again, as an oftentimes field manager, let me reemphasize that there are technically what, three, well, the necessary for takeoff are the glider pilot wags his rudder and the wing runner swings his hand.
Yes.
Okay, the wing runner not swinging his or her hand should be a veto for takeoff. Okay, the tow pilot, and tow pilots, we can argue this, but the wing runner is one of the votes that is necessary for a takeoff. Okay, so let's just remember that. Yeah.
And that's the next point.
Okay.
The wing runner might have just seen something that you haven't out there. He's outside, he's looking. Can the tow pilot see very well behind him? Can the glider pilot see very well behind him? Can the wing runner see down to somebody that's coming in? Yeah, really well. The wing runner might be about to set that wing down as a signal as one of the signals to stop, and if you take off without waiting for his arm, he might just set that down just as you take off. So we haven't had anything like that. I did have somebody at Wood, I think Kylan, you got bashed in one time because the wing was down and the tow pilot wasn't your fault. Just he decided to take off, so they did an unassisted takeoff accidentally. Yes, Henry.
I've also noticed sometimes just the tow pilot and the glider pilot will communicate on the radio, and the wing runner won't have a radio, and then the rudder waggle won't happen. So you really need to waggle the rudder.
I think at some point last year we started doing, because we didn't used to do tow plane and glider communications right before takeoff. Sometime last year we started doing that, and for some reason that kind of overtook the wing runner.
And
so
it can't. The canopy closed and locked ready for takeoff does not mean takeoff. It means I'm going to waggle my rudder now, and then the wing runner is going to swing his arm, and then you can take off. So we'll get after the tow pilots. So expect your ground manager, your field managers, and even our youth members, because they all trained under me. So they can. Right, Kylan? He was my best. He was the best guy up at Afraida, man. All these adults came and they couldn't figure out how to hook up gliders because they were used to being inside of them. Kylan was just spot on every time, getting everything right, safe. So anyway, wait for that wing runner signal. You don't need to. I've seen people sprinting down the run. You don't need to. Don't drop the wing before they're going fast enough and it just falls down. But if the acceleration is just right, it's pretty amazing, right? If the acceleration is just right, this is it sometimes. That's it. That's the perfect acceleration. Depends on wind and stuff. I don't want to see anybody sprinting. You're going to fall down and bash your head. And
I will remind people that sometimes if we are operating with a 5-knot tailwind, it may take a little bit more running.
It may take a little bit more, but I've seen people just sprinting at it's not going to take that. Okay. Okay, this is critical. This part right here. So keep moving once you let go of the wing and move yourself off. This is another thing I'm a stickler about. Do not turn your back on that runway, or at least your eyes, off the runway until the tow plane and glider make their turn out. You may see somebody landing right when they have a rope break, and if you've got a radio, you may be a deconfliction. You may be the only person that's going to see that. So don't turn your back on the runway. Get back to the 50-foot line, but don't do it by turning around and walking away. You see all these young people doing this crab walk back here or walking backwards. Just don't trip over a runway light when you do it. Okay, so you're a big key to things. Okay, this is just visually. Where's the ring right now?
Off in the grass.
Yeah, it's off in the grass. Going, okay. Where am I? I say he. Where's he going in such a hurry? So the ring's over here. I'm actually pulling the line out. It's really slick if you got one of those things with a little hook on it. You can just run the other way and the ring lands right in front of the nose of the glider. But hustle when you're doing it. Don't do this. All right. What are they looking at? What?
Looking at the rope.
They're looking at the rope. Okay. I'm showing the glider pilot the rope. Okay. What am I doing here? Does it look? I'm trying to pull that glider without a tow plane. What am I doing?
Tug test.
Tug test. Where's the wing runner now?
Outside
the term wing runner should be a clear, right? You went off to me. Okay, there I am. Okay, what am I pointing at? What signal am I giving?
Take up slack.
Yeah, you can see this one wasn't really in sequence. This is slack again here. So giving a signal. Okay. And now what are they doing?
Working together.
The wing's up. We're about ready to go. And who's the guy with the hat? What's he doing over here? I think we were using a relay that day or
Yeah,
something. I don't think we want to continue that generally speaking because it tends to be kind of confusing.
We have new mirrors in the plane that work a lot better than when this picture was taken. So
when
it's
the
not
mirrors,
Very good.
when the mirrors were not working well, that was
Good point. Yeah, we'd have somebody abreast of the tow pilot who could relay the signal, but it can be kind of busy stuff, and then you got hats and things, and a little bit more confusion. But it was necessary when you had mirrors that vibrate like this. Right. And there was the wing runner now.
Off the side.
Where every good wing runner should be as soon as he lets go of the wing, off the pavement and working back towards that 50-foot line. Right? Okay, really simple. How many here have actually taken the wing runner course? Oh, there's even some people over 18 that have done it. I mean, I would recommend that all of you adult pilots that fly here should come out and spend a little time on the ground. I mean, from Willamette guys, you might be required to at Willamette anyway, but here, please, if you're going to fly on a day or come out and do this, because I've seen too many adults that aren't proficient, and every time we're not proficient, it increases. 4-letter word, risk. It increases risk because we're just causing confusion out there. Okay. Get trained by one of the field managers. Stan's a chief field manager. I'm kind of a field manager. What else? Brett. Brett.
Ron. Probably.
Ron. Yeah. Get trained. Don't just assume. If you do this, by the way, it's really, and we don't require annual proficiency in this thing, but go do that course, the wing runner course. If you haven't done it, all the youth members have to turn it. And by the way, for our cross-country camp in Ephrata, one of the requirements for every junior that's attending is they have to send me their wing runner certificate, because they're going to be largely the ground crew for their fellow campers, and I want consistency, and consistency is part of safety. Pay attention, like I said, Pat would go away, pay attention to what's going on around you. We need people to manage the field, as you know, right, Stan? You end up coming out every Saturday for half the summer. We'd love to have more people coming out, signing up as field manager, and we have a pretty good collection of youth members, but I don't know, have we discussed whether we're going to formalize that as part of the proficiency plan? Still talking, okay. We won't have to require it if people will volunteer, right? Leave it that way. Adults, please come on down and join us for some of our sim and study nights. We talk about this stuff all the time. We talk about bronze badge stuff. We talk about ground ops. We fly simulators. Our Thursday night sessions are open to everyone. I know it sort of started out as youth stuff, but they're open to everyone who wants to come and get some simulator time or go do some study with us, or who wants to just come and tell us about their soaring history. We'd love to have it. Okay, Ty. This one right there is your forward. All right.
I'll make this quick. I only have a few slides. We'll have a separate tow pilot specific meeting in the near future that's going to cover a lot more stuff like tow plane systems and SOPs and things like that. But one thing, I just want to touch on a few topics that kind of relate to glider pilots and tow pilots. They've covered a lot of it already. One thing you'll hear me say a lot in my experience, I'm not a glider pilot. I had like the one ride that was required to become a tow pilot, and
absolutely
somehow ended up as president of a glider club. But
how many are tow pilots in the room?
so we are the minority for sure. So that being said, in my experience here at Hood River, we're known for one thing, right? And it's the wind. It's usually the tow pilot that raises their hand and says, it's getting a little bit too windy for us, right? I've never seen a day where Kelly wouldn't go fly. Like it's like whatever the wind is blowing, like they can go fly, and the more wind, the better. Eventually, though, the tow pilots, it gets a little bit gnarly for us landing and taking off. So what I really try to stress to a lot of the tow pilots is to develop hard limits. Say, I'm not going to tow if the winds are greater than 250. And if you're out at the club and it's a busy day and the AWOS starts saying 25 gusting to 30, don't be afraid to say, hey, we're done. Nobody's ever I'll make sure that nobody's ever going to fault you for that or say, well, we got 3 scenics, we're gonna make this money. Sorry, like, I'm the tow pilot and I'm towing today, and we're done. When I started towing in calm winds only, and then eventually, like, worked my way. I'd call Joe probably 2 or 3 times, and he would tow for me because it was beyond my limits, but I knew it wasn't beyond the limits of the club, right? And eventually, Joe was like, I think you should probably go fly today. And he pushed me a little bit, because you got to expand those limits, that's good, but do that in a very careful way. So, Kelly talked earlier about standing on the runway and listening to the AWOS and seeing what that feels like. Take notes in your logbook about, hey, it was 12 gusting to 20 today from 290. It was difficult, but I felt comfortable, and use that to help develop your limits. So what are your personal limits? Maximum wind, crosswind component, gust factor, all these things factor in, okay? Tailwind not to exceed 7 knots, that's our club limitation. And that's a hard limit as well. I mean, once the AWOS, you hear it says, the wind isn't very accurate. The anemometer here is not very accurate, but it is pretty accurate for east wind, I think. And if it exceeds 7 knots, I mean, that's it. We're done for scenic flights. And it's a big effort to move everything down and use runway 7. So be mindful of that. So develop your own limits, write them down, and stick to them. This time of year, and as we get into the late fall, the temperature is a little bit bigger deal for us. Obviously, with the tow plane, we get a lot better performance. Cold temperatures gives us good performance, but it takes a long time to warm up the tow plane. So just be patient with the tow pilots. It might take us a long time to warm up. So this is at idle in the tow plane, and the red line here is at 85 psi for oil pressure, and that's at idle. And you can see the oil temperature is still at about 40 degrees, and that oil is so thick that the oil pressure is really high. Not until that oil temp gets up around 140 before we can really even go full throttle on that. So just be patient with us. If you see us sitting over there in the run-up corner, idling and idling and idling, we're doing it for a reason. One thing I push to a lot of tow pilots, I went to school at University of North Dakota, and they did this big study on rounded patterns. And they determined that ultimately they're safer. It's harder to get the FAA to sign off and to teach something new that they've been teaching for 125 years now. But yeah, so I fly, most of my patterns are going to be a circular pattern like that. What else we got here? So traffic pattern, rectangular pattern, rounded base final. Tow plane operational considerations. Rope drop. With Tow Zulu, we don't have the reel down in the cockpit there. So that's just a fixed rope. And we've gone back and forth as a club a lot. Tow Zulu is a very, very nice tow plane, but it does have the fixed rope, which is probably pretty standard at a lot of other clubs. You'll see a lot of pilots drop the rope. You'll see some pilots land with the rope, but you have to be mindful of a few different things. Are you landing on the asphalt or are you landing on the grass? If you're landing on the asphalt, I'm dropping the rope. I'm not going to drag the rope down the asphalt. There is a house about right here, and that rope, it is hanging below you even when you're going 100 miles an hour on final. You shouldn't be going 100 miles an hour on final, but even if you're going 100 miles an hour, it's still below you a little bit. I think every tow pilot by this point has snagged one of these trees, and most of us have snagged a runway reflector.
Oh, geez.
There might be a couple in my driveway. Runway lights. That's all right. Pull your hat down a little. Be mindful of where the runway lights are. Taxiway lights. Planes holding short. So I'm also very mindful if there's an airplane holding short here. If I'm dropping the rope, I at least let them know I'm going to be dropping the rope and landing on the grass there. And that brings up another important point that I thought of when Brian was talking. Field managers, if you have a radio, I try to do as much deconfliction for the gliders as I can when I'm flying the tow plane. If I'm taking off, towing a glider, and there's an airplane holding short in the run-up area over here, I let them know, just give us an extra 1 minute, 60 seconds before you take the runway, just in case there's a rope break and they have to come back. You'll see a lot of airplanes, a lot of people passing through, not locals. They're unfamiliar with operating around gliders and tow planes. As soon as we start rolling, they're pulling out onto the runway. And if we have a rope break and you're doing that 180 and coming back to land, that can create a problem, right? So I just get on the radio and just let them know, explain it to them quick. 99 out of 100 people are pretty cool with it.
Yeah, and if you don't, as a field manager, I will make that call, especially if I see them start to move. I'll ask them to wait.
I talked earlier about the north taxiway considerations and landing on the grass, so you might see us going around if there's somebody on that north taxiway. So use extreme caution when landing gliders on 2.5. Traffic is taxiing on the north taxiway. We go around. And be extra mindful of rope drops when traffic is holding short. There's nothing that says you have to drop the rope right next to the taxiway. There's like a runway light box, like a electrical junction box out there. It stands about this tall. I always try to hit that with the rope when I drop it.
Although I will tell you, you can go significantly earlier than that and probably hedge your risk a little bit by dropping earlier than that. You don't want it to be that quick.
Exactly right. You can drop it a lot earlier. It's a huge field right there.
Ty, if you want to comment on how far that rope actually moves forward after you pull the release?
Right.
In my experience, it just stops.
That's right.
Yeah.
You assume it's going to have a lot of momentum, and it's just, we watch it and it's almost straight down.
Yeah, it literally just dies and drops right where you release it. So. Oh yeah, this is landing. We talked about simultaneous operations on the runway and how this is runway 2.5, asphalt and grass are actually one runway. And in the past, we've said no landing on the grass if there's a glider on the runway, but it's okay if you land beyond them. So kind of comes down to what the party is comfortable with. We're still kind of hashing that out as an SOP.
So is it required to drop the rope? I don't think.
It's not required. In fact, if I'm doing patterns and we're just doing quick turns, I don't drop the rope. I'll just land long with it. But if most of the time, if it's not a pattern, I'm dropping the rope.
But I have found it is kind of comes down to tow pilot preference.
Okay. Yeah.
And again, talk to your crew, have a briefing between tow pilot, field manager, and so on.
Yeah.
And work out what do you like to do? How do you like to do it?
If we're going for fuel right off the end of one tow, we're gonna drop the rope for sure.
Yeah.
Right. And then the ground crew has to be aware too that they have to run and pick up the rope.
So I always.
You were talking about somebody landing on grass while there was a glider. That plane that landed on the grass have to clear off before you allow the glider. Because he's out in front of the glider.
Yeah.
Usually it's right. Usually the powered planes.
Repeat the question because people won't be able to.
Sure. So he's asking, does the airplane that landed on the grass have to clear that runway before we take off again on 2.5?
Right.
Yeah, and typically that's a powered airplane that landed on the grass. And they're out of there in a couple minutes. If it is a glider that landed and they landed long up there, it's kind of a case by case. I haven't seen that situation happen.
Yeah,
where it comes
we would
to
take
mind.
it on a case by case basis, but we will also. I won't, as a field manager again. I'm speaking as field manager here. I won't make that move until I've communicated with them and I know that they're going to hold. If we're going to do it, it's only if they are okay with it and if they're going to hold position and not be moving at that time. So it's mostly about communication.
And the last thing I wanted to touch on was, Kylan, if you're sitting there and I'm in the pilot seat of the yellow Cub, can I see you? No. And the nose on that Cub is a lot smaller than the Pawnee, right? Just this last week in the Dalles, there was a very unfortunate accident between a human and a propeller. And the person is still alive. Very lucky to be here. But it's going to be a very long road to recovery. This stuff happens. And the way it happened for them was they had a dead battery and they were trying to hand prop a Super Cub on floats.
So it's way up there.
Right. And while they were hand propping it, nobody knows yet because the person was alone and they're not awake yet. But they must have slipped and fallen into it as it was.
I think he was on the pontoon from
Right.
behind it.
Yep. As they should have been, right? If you're hand propping a Cub
With the hand
alone, right? So, under no circumstance will anybody here ever hand prop one of our Pawnees.
But if I was formulating this as you were, again, as the ground crew field manager point of view, the one thing I wanted to tie together was this question of tow plane and ground crew safety. There are essentially, I went through it, there are 4 ways you can get hit by a prop. Either it runs into you while it's running, you run into it while it's running, or you're trying to hand prop it and something happens, which will never be our situation, or you're in the prop arc while something fires, either somebody starts it up or a magneto fires off or something like that. We can avoid all of these situations, okay? The two of those that I'm most concerned with our ground crew are movement of the aircraft or movement of the ground crew while the aircraft is running, okay? So my standard for ground crew is, while the tow plane is taxiing up to get the glider, you are not running around and moving at that point. Even if there's something to be, I respect the idea of hustle and get this and get that. But while the tow plane is coming up to the glider and you're your ground crew responsible for the glider, you take position, usually I try to take position near the nose of the glider and I just hold position while the tow pilot is taxiing towards me, okay? Because, as Ty points out, they can't see over the nose very well. They may be doing some S-turning and so on. So if you're moving around, you're creating an extra load on that tow pilot needing to keep track of a moving target so that they don't hit it, okay? So stay near something that already exists. Stay near the glider. Tow pilot knows where the glider is. They're going to taxi up and avoid the glider. So you hold position near the glider until the tow plane stops, okay? That prevents the tow plane from running into you. You keep your eyes on it during that time. Okay. Now, you not running into the tow plane, that actually creates it solves both of those problems. Once the tow plane stops, again, my standard is I don't go in front of the wing of the tow plane. If I need to talk to, there shouldn't be any reason to go in front of the wing. Stay behind the tow plane wing. You can talk to the pilot from behind the wing. If you need to go up and talk to the pilot, you can go right to him and talk to him from there. Anything you need to do with the tow rope is going to be at the tail of the tow plane. And so you can do whatever you need to do. You should be able to do whatever you need to do from behind the wing. Otherwise, you should be communicating directly with the pilot and understanding exactly what's going on. Now, you'll see me sometimes up in front of the wing because I have experience working around airplanes and I know what I'm doing. But I'm also usually in eye contact with the pilot or radio contact with the pilot, and we know what I'm doing up there. But in terms of ground crew, stay behind the wing. Don't move while the tow plane is taxiing up, and don't let anybody else move around during that time either. Did I pretty much cover the right stuff?
So I was just going to say my dad just retired this week. He's a over-the-road trucker, and on every truck he's driven my entire life, I've watched him drive. There's a sticker that says, "If you can't see my mirrors."
I can't see.
Right, well, right. If you can't see the pilot, they can't see you. So there's a lot of blind spots, especially in the Pawnee. So be mindful of that. And it's not just about us that are glider pilots and tow pilots out there. These people that show up for a scenic ride may have never been around a small airplane in their life. And if that airplane is idling or it's running when they show up, it may not even occur to them that there is a propeller there. All right? Like, we have to do this for the lowest common denominator, right?
It seems obvious, but people have got out of helicopters and walked to the rear right into the tail rotor without realizing it before.
Yes.
It happens.
Yeah, because that propeller is invisible when it's, even at 900 RPM when it's sitting there idling, right? It sounds, dumb to us, but this is what we have to, just please be mindful of that when our scenic guests show up especially, right?
Is it a similar protocol for tow plane startup? Stand behind the wing, maybe help them with the all clear signal.
So I typically try to have one of the ground crew or field manager. I make eye contact with them and tell them I'm starting, and I'll see Stan give me the go ahead to start.
And that is a case where I won't recommend it for my ground crew, but I'll be up in front of the wing so I can both see the engine in case anything happens with the engine. I can see past the tow plane so I can see anybody on the other side of it, and then I'll give him an okay signal to go.
And like I said, we'll have another meeting for just the tow pilots here pretty soon to cover more of the operational stuff. But I think that's all we got.
I think Jonathan wants to ask who's flying today, so we can line it
if
off
anybody
for
is
this
flying,
afternoon.
meet with me afterwards and we'll.
Alex?
Can I say just a couple things?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
For those who don't know me, I'm Alex Winbo. I'm from Willamette. My glider Viennese tied out there. For the Willamette folks coming to fly at Hood River, you've noticed there are some operational differences. And for the Hood River folks flying at Willamette, there are some operational differences. I will not try to tell you what those are. I won't remember them. You won't remember what I say. My suggestion is take advantage of what was mentioned earlier. Come out and say, I'd like to be a trainee on field operations. Same thing at North Plains. Come out and say, I'd like to be a trainee on field operations. Show me how you want it done, right? Learn to do that. Learn to help out your guests at each other's clubs. It's appreciated and it's safer. What we all have in common is if you see something, say something. If you're not comfortable, stop the launch. Better to clarify the ambiguity and learn it's okay than to say nothing. That actually happened to me. We'd launched a glider here at Hood River. Power pilot came around. He'd already done his run up and just took right off, right behind behind the glider taking off. And I thought, it'd really be good to give him a minute gap to get up to pattern altitude, right? But I'm at Hood River and I'm a guest. I don't really want to say anything. I had my radio on me. And I asked afterwards and they said, oh yeah, you should have pulled out your radio and told that darn power pilot to hold his, can he hold for 45 seconds, right? So if you see something, say something. Willamette has our safety meeting next Saturday. It will not be, we do not have the benefit of a pancake breakfast because we do not have the hearts here. We'll be lucky if we have coffee. But everyone is welcome there as well. And that will be at Twin Oaks Air Park, which is in southwest of Portland. It's quite a ways out there. It's 9 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Alex, I'm pretty sure you already sent an email, but now that you have everybody's attention, will you send another email?
I will send another reminder email.
Yes,
Yes,
thank you.
absolutely. 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Used to be at 8. I moved it to 9, partly because I think it was just very unfair to the Hood River folks to try to get to southwest Portland by 8 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, God.
So we have a great turnout here from Willamette folks, and obviously you guys are very welcome to see you guys next Saturday as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. So let's have one more thing.
So that's not going to.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so for people that weren't here, we recorded it, and they'll get to they'll have to watch it before they can.
Yeah, you have
come on
to
up.
watch it, and youth members, I have the advantage of going through it and making timestamps and asking questions and asking them to answer the questions without knowing the timestamps.
Are you going to ask questions about your quiz shots in there?
Oh yeah. Well, they can always watch the video to get the answer. No, that's to make sure to watch the whole thing. I won't make the adults do that unless you want me to.
But Brian, I thought that was for kids who weren't here.
That's right. Yeah, anybody who's not here. It's required for everybody who wants to fly at Hood River this year needs to watch it. So even if somebody joins tomorrow, it's like, here, go watch the video. Read the ops manual. We didn't really talk about it. Read the ops manual. That's a requirement. Watch the video. It won't be tomorrow, but whenever John gets it to me and I get it posted,
I'll get it to you.
So let's have a safe and successful year, and I'll see you guys all out at the club. I need more food.
there's lots more. There should be lots of burrito stuff there. I figured this might spill over to lunchtime, so go eat some more.
So anybody flying today?